welcome back. I'm Danielle, your resident romantic.
And I'm Lindsay, the fantasy fan, and we are friends
till the book ends. Thank you for tuning in to us. This is a little after Christmas, but we're still going to fill it with Christmas vibes. We thought instead of doing a general gift exchange, we are actually going to do a book exchange. So I picked a book for Lindsay to read, and Lindsay picked a book for me to read. We're going to open it up now on camera for you guys to see what we got each other. We're going to run through a brief synopsis of the books, give our first general opinions, and then we're going to catch you guys in about a week to let you know how it went, because we're going to read it and see how it goes.
Yeah, so Danielle and I kind of picked blindly here because she doesn't have an updated Goodreads. So I was just going off of books on her bookshelf, and she didn't check my Goodreads. So.
But I also don't know your bookshelf.
She doesn't know my bookshelf either. So
I'm very scared.
Hoping that we didn't buy either something that we read or something that we know we're not interested in. But that's okay. We are setting the bar at medium expectations.
Well, that's why I got nervous, because I know that you like V.E. Schwab, and I know you like Brandon Sanderson.
I do.
But I don't know which ones you've read by them or which ones you already have. So it's neither of them.
Okay.
There were a lot that I wanted to buy you by both of them.
Yeah,
and I was like,
that's probably a fair shot, because I own almost all of V.E. Schwab's books.
Oh, thank God I did not buy you any then.
I haven't read a lot of Brandon Sanderson, but I own a lot that I haven't read either, so those were probably safe bets. Danielle and I joked that in our previous video that if she bought something that was shiny for me, that I'd like it, and that if I bought something with love in the title, that she'd like it. We didn't follow those rules at all. Mine does not have love in the title, and she's already told me that the book is not shiny.
I tried, though. There were not many shiny ones in the fantasy section.
So we'll kind of see how it goes, but we're excited. Danielle's going to open the present that I got her first. So it's wrapped, it's cute, it's got a penguin on the tag, so this is for you.
Just to zoom in on the tag, because the penguin has a bow tie, if you can see it.
He's well dressed.
Yeah.
He's cute.
I appreciate the formality. I like it. Okay. I will say, you are very good at rapping.
Thank you. Oh God, I hope you haven't read it.
Elly Blake does not sound familiar to me as an author, so... Frostblood. First of all, I'm a fan of the cover.
Okay, we're off to a good start.
Alright, I'm just going to read you the synopsis off the back and then let you know my first thoughts. 17-year-old Ruby is a fireblood who has concealed her powers of heat and flame from the cruel Frostblood ruling class her entire life. But when her mother is killed trying to protect her, and rebel Frostbloods demand her help to overthrow their bloodthirsty king, she agrees to come out of hiding, desperate for revenge. Despite her unpredictable abilities, Ruby trains with the rebels and the infuriating, yet irresistible, Arcus, who seems to think of her as nothing more than a weapon. But before they can take action, Ruby is captured and forced to compete in the King's tournaments that pit Fireblood prisoners against Frostblood champions. Now she has only one chance to destroy the maniacal ruler who has taken everything from her, and from the icy young man she has come to love. I'm gonna be honest, first of all, it sounds like a book you would love. This is straight up fantasy. I can tell it right now.
And romance, though. It's got romance in it.
Yes, a little bit. I'm torn. I think I will enjoy it, but at the same time, this is like a whole new world to learn. It feels like the Hunger Games. It also feels like kind of the Everneath trilogy. I'm definitely getting a strong fantasy vibe from this.
Yes.
I think I'm going to enjoy it. I don't see as much love in here yet.
Okay, so my thought process for picking this book was I went first to the YA contemporary section of the Barnes & Nobles, and nothing stood out to me. Like, I scoured through every book, and nothing really popped out to me, and also I wasn't sure what you had read. So I thought the best chance of me getting something that you haven't read is to go slightly outside the comfort zone here. But this is a book that I've actually read years ago, and I thought that it was pretty good and underrated, and I really haven't heard many people talk about it. But I will say the romance is a prominent part of it. Like, it's a fantasy romance. So I do think it's a pretty poppin' part. So I hope that you like. I'm really nervous, but it's also like wintry, and it's like a winter vibe, and
well, you are right. I do like that. I like the winter vibe. As long as you're gonna promise me there's prominent love in here, I'll trust it.
I thought there was a decent amount of romance, but also you're the resident romantic here, so that's kind of your area of expertise.
Yeah, I'll put it on the romance ranking scale at the end, and we'll see.
Yes.
But yeah, the back just doesn't give a whole lot about it, but I don't know. I'm excited. I do like the fantasy part. I like fantasy, and not that this is necessarily paranormal, but I like those kind of books. I especially like that it's a series, because I have been craving a new fantasy series. So let's see how it goes. All right, now it is my my turn to give to Lindsay.
I'm very excited.
I am very nervous, just like you were with mine. I hope you like it.
I'm really pumped. This was on my to-read list. I haven't bought it, though.
What?
Yes.
No.
No.
You haven't even opened it yet.
I saw it through the tissue paper. Because I have laser vision.
Okay, just so everyone's clear, I have not seen your to-be-read list for this.
No, this was a book that I wanted to pick up this winter and buy, but I never got around to it because my TBR is forever long. So you picked a book that I'm so excited to read. So she picked for me The Bear and the Nightingale by Katherine Arden, and this is a book that I have seen absolutely hyped up everywhere, and everyone says it's such a great winter, because it's a series, and this is the first book. Everyone says it's a great winter series, and I think it has a really high rating on Goodreads. So I am so pumped. This was such
I'm proud of myself.
This was such a hit. So go through your thought process. I feel like I'm talking too much, but I'm pumped.
This is not the first book I originally thought of. I know that Lindsay loves fantasy, so I actually went straight to the fantasy section in Barnes & Noble's. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I skipped right past V.E. Schwab and Brandon Sanderson because I didn't know what she was going to have. I skipped anything that was well-known, like Sarah J. Maas. I didn't know if you had all the books in the series. I didn't know if the series was done. I don't know a lot of the high-profile fantasy series. There was a fantasy one that I was going to get you, but I remember the last time we went there, you told me you had already read it, so I couldn't get that one. There were a couple that the covers looked really cool, but then the synopsis, they were either midway through the series, and I couldn't find the original one. And then I fell on this, and it is part fantasy, part kind of a thriller, which I know that you sometimes enjoy those.
I do.
And the other thing, like you mentioned, is that it did seem like a good wintry vibe. That's everything that I got from it.
So we both went with the winter vibe.
Yeah, that was turned out pretty well.
Yeah.
Plus, I knew it was at least a trilogy. I didn't know if there were more because there were only 1, 2, 3 on the shelf. So I figured if you like it, there's more. If not, you need to find a new partner for the show.
No, this is super exciting because it's also blurbed by Naomi Novik, who I read Uprooted by her, and I really liked it. And this is along the same lines because it's like a Russian fairy tale kind of inspired. So I've heard really great things. Another booktuber, Riley Marie, just read this and she really, really enjoyed it. I think she gave it 4.5 stars. So I really think this was a major hit.
Did you want to read the back cover for everyone?
Oh yeah, I should read the back cover so you know what I'm talking about. Okay. So winter lasts most of the year at the edge of the Russian wilderness, and in the long nights, Vasilisa and her siblings love to gather by the fire to listen to their nurses' fairy tales. Above all, Vasia loves the story of Frost, the blue-eyed winter demon. Wise Russians fear him, for he claims unwary souls, and they honor the spirits that protect their homes from evil. Then Vasia's widowed father brings home a new wife from Moscow. Fiercely devout, Vasia's stepmother forbids her family from honoring their household spirits, but Vasia fears what this may bring. And indeed, misfortune begins to stalk the village. But Vasia's stepmother only grows harsher, determined to remake the village to her liking, and to groom her rebellious stepdaughter for marriage or a convent. As the village's defenses weaken and evil from the forest creeps nearer, Vasilisa must call upon dangerous gifts she has concealed to protect her family from a threat sprung to life from her nurse's most frightening tales. So it's kind of definitely got that, like, thriller vibe in the sense that there's impending doom and she has to stop it. I love also that chosen one trope where it's like the girl is special and she's different because I want to be special and different too. So
that's absolutely one of the reasons I chose it, because I never heard you say specifically that trope that you enjoy, but a lot of the book reviews that you've done for the channel so far, you've mentioned a lot of books that have it where it's like the soul warrior. Also, if you want to read the blurb up front,
it says, Arden's debut novel has the cadence of a beautiful fairy tale, but is darker and more lyrical.
So that is the sole reason I got it, because it has a fairy tale, which is the fantasy part, and it's darker and lyrical. And you recently reviewed some of the books that you read where the fairies were kind of a darker twist. Yeah. And so I figured this sounds like a perfect mesh. I really hope I hit the spot.
I think you did. We're really pumped to read these.
I am. One of the blurbs on the back says it has a steamy romance, so I think you hit the mark.
Okay, good.
But but see, it's different. You already know you want that book. I don't know I want this book.
So we are tentatively in good spots here. Yes. So the good part is we didn't pick something that the either has read or that the either has absolutely no interest in reading. So those are
that the other already has.
Yes.
Because even if you've already read it, but you don't have it on your shelf, it could like kind of be okay.
Yeah.
But I think this is gonna be exciting.
I know.
We will see you in a week.
We'll check back. Hi guys, it's been a couple seconds for you, but it's been a week for us, and we have both read our respective books. I read The Bear and the Nightingale by Katherine Arden.
And I read Frostblood by Elly Blake. And we made sure not to text the other person this entire week about what we thought about the book. We wanted to collect all of our thoughts for the video and kind of surprise each other with what we thought. So you are finding out at the same time that we are what we both thought of each other's books.
Yeah.
So
I did end up really enjoying this book. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars.
Yay!
So it was a very solid read. So you got the description from me last time, so I won't bore you with the synopsis again, but just note that the synopsis is very vague on the back of this book, but it is very much more in-depth. Obviously, when you get into things, things are much more complicated than the back of the book makes it seem. I really enjoyed the atmosphere of this book. It was perfect for winter. Obviously, there's winter on the cover, so you're thinking it's probably a good winter read. It is. They're in Russia, so think dark, cold, desolate landscape, lots of snow.
That definitely sounds like a good setting for that kind of book, then.
It really was. It was perfect. And I really loved how the author, she's not Russian herself, but she did a lot of really intense, heavy research on Russian folklore, Russian fairy tales, and was able to really seamlessly blend it all together in this book. The author does make a note at the very end of the book that she's not Russian. She did take some creative license with the book, so some words are not directly translatable, so she kind of had to do her own thing with it. But she had a purpose for it. She kind of over-dramatized some of the different aspects of the Russian folklore and fairy tale, but I think that I couldn't tell. Granted, I'm not an expert on this, but I couldn't tell. I thought it was perfectly done as far as the writing style goes. Where it didn't get a full 5 stars for me is that I kind of had a slightly different impression of what the book was going to be like. I thought we were going to be following the main character, Vasya, as a 14, 15-year-old, kind of like the back suggests. Right. But the first, third of the book, you're following Vasya, not even really her, you're following her family, but she's like a child. She's like 4, 5, 6 years old, so she's tiny. And so she doesn't really have that much of a presence in the first third, maybe even half of the book. And then there's a big time jump skip, and then Vasya is then 15, I think, in this book. And for the rest of the book.
That's interesting. Is it kind of slow at first then because of that?
Yeah, I would say that this was a very slow book to get going. Like, the author does a lot of setting up. She's making sure you're understanding the family, all the different characters, the setting, the atmosphere. Like, she's setting you up for a story. Okay. So it almost felt like how someone tells a fairy tale story to you, because you have to do the setup in order for you to kind of understand what's going on. So I understand why she did it. It just kind of made for a boring first third. The second part of the book, or whatever, really picked up for me once we're following Vasya as she's kind of more a teenager, because we get to see her as an actual character, as a person, and she was much more likable as like a teenager than she was as a child. She was a very annoying child. There's also a lot of other unlikable characters in the book, which sometimes reading unlikable characters is a chore, because you know you're not supposed to like them, but sometimes reading about them is just like painful, because you're like, these people are the worst. There are a couple characters, the stepmother and the priest in this book were just awful people and just really terrible to read about. They served a purpose, and it furthered the plot in a way that was creative enough that I was like, I don't hate reading about them. Like, they're terrible people, but I don't hate them. I don't hate reading. I do hate them, but I don't hate reading about them. So I thought that the author did that very well. It's really interesting because the main villain of the story and kind of the old gods in general, they're not really introduced until way far into the book. Really? Which, so you're kind of, you know that the author's setting up for something in the first part, but you're not sure what, and then it all kind of smacks you like a freight train, and things, like the second half of the plot, especially this last part, was wild. Like, things were happening at a breakneck speed, which usually to me seems rushed, but it didn't feel rushed.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so it didn't feel rushed, although, the book is really short. It's only 312 pages, and the first half of the book, nothing really happens. So the fact that the author was able to do that in such a small book is really impressive. Like I said, there were just points off for the fact that the first part was kind of boring and long, and the big time jump was kind of weird to me, personally, and I don't know, I wasn't a huge fan of that part, but I really think that the author was setting up for such a interesting sequel. There's 2 sequels, so it's a trilogy, and the trilogy is now completed. I believe the 3rd book came out last year.
I was going to say, are you going to read the other 2 books?
Yes, I'm going to read the other 2 books, and I will actually buy them.
Oh,
so that I have a completed trilogy.
Deal, then.
Yes, because I don't buy books that I don't think I'm going to enjoy, but everybody that I've looked on from BookTube that has liked this book. Most people say that this is a good book, like 4.5 star. But the second and third books are always 5 stars. Like, people are obsessed with the second and third books. So this book left off on a little bit of a cliffhanger. So I'm interested to see where the author's taking it, because the second and third books are not going to be set in the same place as this book is. So I'm interested to see how the author does with the switch of settings, because I feel like such a strong point of this book was the atmosphere and the setting, because it made me feel cold in a good way. Like, it made me feel like I was adrift in the Russian wilderness with these characters.
It really brought you into the book?
It did.
Good.
So,
Those kind of books are awesome.
Right? It really just felt like I was really engaged with it. So I'm interested to see how she does, not in quite the same, like, wilderness Russian setting. So I will let you guys know, hopefully in a future wrap-up, what the next 2 books are going to look like.
It's actually kind of funny, because both of our books are, like, the first book in a trilogy. So
yes.
I guess if we both end up liking the first book, we might have to have, like, a recent reads wrap-up of the second part of each of our trilogies.
Yeah, we should do that. That would be really fun, actually.
That would be.
Yeah, and we can kind of see if, for me personally, I often find that the first book in a trilogy is usually my favorite, and I hate trilogy endings. I feel I never am satisfied. So,
really?
Yeah, so I'd be curious to see how it kind of goes. I'm just an unsatisfied person in life, apparently. I'm too picky. That would be interested to see kind of like if you like the whole of your series, if you felt like one book was stronger than the other, but maybe that's something to look forward to on our channel.
But we don't know if I like the first book in my trilogy yet, so let's switch over to me, and I'll give you my rating. Alright, switching things over to me. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. I was so happy with it.
I'm so glad you liked it, because I was so nervous that I did you dirty.
I'm so glad I liked it, because I keep replaying, like, for you guys it's the same video, but I keep replaying how I reacted when I opened it last week, and I was like, I don't think I was that thrilled about it, honestly. I think I was very apprehensive, which is unusual, because I like books like these. I don't know why I was so apprehensive. I think because it was a hate to love, and you said it was books you like, and I was like, we don't always like the same
Danielle's
books.
like, stop buying books that you like for me.
Right, I'm not you, Lindsay. My name's Danielle. The author, I thought, wrote this really well. She had a very unique style. A lot of times when you're writing fantasy books like this, you have to have everything detailed. You have to know the world you're writing. You have to know the kind of lingo, the definitions you're going to be using, the descriptions for everyone. You have to make sure it's detailed enough that I know what I'm picturing right now while I'm reading this, but not too detailed where I'm like, I don't care what color stone is sitting by your grandeur house right there, and I don't care if there's moss on it. Like, I don't need that much detail. This was one of the kind of books where you're reading it and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm 100 pages in and I'm an hour late for lunch. I didn't realize I had spent that much time on it. So it was really good. I actually don't have that much to complain about since I gave it a 5 out of 5. One thing I didn't like, and it's not going to count towards the rating, but I actually forgot the main character's name. So the main character is Ruby. She is a Fireblood, so the name makes sense. But the way that the author writes it, they refer to her as Fireblood a lot because she works with Frostblood, who are kind of, in their minds, the more superior tier. They can handle ice. Fireblood can, of course, handle fire. So the Firebloods are really the lowest on the totem pole. They're kind of like the peasants in the Frostbloods' mind. They're people who are filth. You don't want to mess with them. So as kind of a derogatory term, they call the main character Fireblood a lot of the time for the first part, at least for like the solid third of the book. And so they don't actually call her Ruby. And I was actually shocked when they called her Ruby at like the 10th chapter. I was like, wait, who's that? So I felt like the name could have been in there a little bit more. I felt like I knew the other characters' names better. But at the same time, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very fantastical place. I am excited for book 2 and 3. I already have them ordered.
Oh!
Yes, I'm very excited for it. I'm hoping to get them done this coming week if they get delivered
in
time.
She said I'm going to read the whole series.
Well, because I hate starting a series and not finishing it. Or like reading a book in between because then I have to get back into the magical world.
Did you actually buy them?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited for them.
I wasn't sure if you got them from the library.
I haven't bought them in person. Like they're ordered online. So I have to wait for them to be delivered.
That's awesome.
Another thing that I was thinking of when reading this is, so if you have read the Under the Never Sky trilogy,
you love that trilogy.
I do love this trilogy. It's not the same concept as this is more of a futuristic world, and this kind of almost feels not like an older world, but it definitely has more of that older kind of
fantasy feel.
Not fantasy, but like the talking. Like some of the guys in here are like, oh my gods. Like to me, it's just an older form of talking. But both of them have kind of a hate-to-love romance between the main guy and the girl, which I don't totally love, but the author writes it so well that I enjoy it. I also think that Veronica Rossi in this trilogy did such a good job describing the magical world that you're in, which is not even magical like this one. It's just so different than a normal world. So I felt like both of these authors were great at describing their characters, great at describing the plot, everything around them. They're two totally different synopses, worlds that they're in, but I would feel like if you've read this, you're absolutely going to love this, and you've read this, you're going to love this, because I was thinking about that the whole time. But yeah, overall, I loved it. I gave it a 5 out of 5. I don't have much to complain about it.
Do you like Arcus?
I do! I love him so much. He was so, like, back and forth with her in the beginning, but at the same time, I was like,
Arcus is the main kind of love interest.
Yes,
he
Arcus
was also
is the
her
guy.
teacher, right?
Of course there was a teacher scene, because he was teaching her how to fight.
Yes.
Which, I mean, hello. What kind of perfect setup?
Every fantasy romance needs that.
I know. I was actually a little disappointed, because he was teaching her how to fight, and in the scene, there was a perfect moment for him to come up and be like, let me guide you on how to hold the sword. And he didn't do it. It was like,
too cheesy.
It was brushed over, but it was there, so I was waiting for that.
Do you feel, I know your concern was that there wasn't going to be enough romance in the book, like it was going to be outbalanced by the fantasy aspect. Do you feel as if they were balanced out more than you thought they were going to be, or do you still feel like...
Yes, definitely balanced out more. I was afraid of that at first, but I think that it's really well balanced. It's such a fantastical world that I'm okay if it's a little bit more focused on that than love, because the love just kind of gets intertwined in there. So, to me, they're not even separate. They're all together. It's very well balanced. I am super stoked for it. Yay. Hopefully, on one of our next recent reads videos, I'll be able to talk about book number 2 and 3.
Right. Awesome. So, I feel like we did a really good job.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Picking each other's books for each other. We were both nervous. You don't want to buy someone something that they're not going to enjoy.
Right. This went out too well for the first time. We're definitely going to do this again. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, this could be something that we do like every couple of months.
Absolutely.
Also, I feel like mine was something that I wanted to get to, but it was on my winter TBR, but I never got to it, and it's the end of December. So, would I have gotten to it? Honestly, probably not this year. So her buying it forced me to read it, which I'm happy. And then I feel like yours pushed a little bit outside the comfort zone. It's in the comfort zone that you still like fantasy romance, but it might not have been something that you picked up for yourself.
Right. It's definitely nothing I've heard of. It's from 2017. Yeah. I think the trilogy was wrapped up in 2018, so I probably wouldn't have heard of it unless you got it to me. And I've actually been really needing a book that I get sucked into. Yeah. Like, I haven't really been able to get sucked into a book like that in a while, so this was fun.
So this was a win. Yes.
This was a win.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for watching. Please like or subscribe if you enjoyed today's video. Leave a comment down below if you've read either of these two books, because I feel like Frostblood is an underrated book because I don't hear anybody ever talk about it.
Really? This is so good.
I never hear anybody talk about it, but I think it is good. And The Bear and the Nightingale is a very hyped book, but I want to see if you also thought the same things that I thought were its weaknesses or its strengths. So go ahead and leave a comment down below if you've read either of these two books.
Yes, so we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.